Why is banking as a service so hot right now?
Yeah, it's completely true. Every company is striving to become a fintech company.
I think the demand for instant gratification is because we live in a digital world today.
All right. Hi, folks. Good morning. It is literally like 40 degrees in Florida, which evidently means my internet gets bad. Hence me being pixelated. We should also play a game of what's changed on Sam's screen, because y'all should know my desk by now. I'll give you a 5-second ticker. New picture. Come on. Lawrence of Arabia. I can't believe no one didn't notice that. I'm shameful, people. All right. Do me a favor. Let me know where you're at. Most importantly, click that share button that's down there. Let people know that you're here. I'm doing it right now. Here we go. And any of those icons down there, the share, the like, the support, whatever, I just smacked every single one of them. Make sure you click on those. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam All. Welcome to episode 10 of the 11FS Newsroom. In this weekly show, we take a deep dive into the biggest news stories of the week just gone by. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn so you never miss an episode. Also, what you just saw was the trailer of our new documentary series about banking as a service. The third episode was released last week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. Go to bit.ly/decoding BAAS to find out more. That's bit.ly/decoding BAAS. Today, we're going to talk about Google's move into Venmo and banking territory with checking accounts and an updated payment app and also a savings account, by the way. Google users will be able to open up a bank account through the Google Pay app in partnership with Citi and the Stanford Federal Credit Union, which I know so many of you are members of, towards the beginning of next year. And to talk about this, we're bringing on Kate Moody out of our London office because Kate knows so much more than me. Hello, Kate. How are you?
Hi, happy 1st of December. You ready for Christmas?
It is the first 24 shopping days, everybody. 24. So excited. That means Pentatonix has new music out. Guaranteed. Kate has no clue what I'm talking about.
No,
Michael Bublé is playing all over the radio, and Mariah Carey is dominating because she's the queen. Is she not, Kate?
Oh, absolutely. But yeah. Have you got an advent calendar? Is this a US thing? Advent calendars?
We have a Star Wars Baby Yoda advent calendar, and every time you open it, you go, "That is the cutest thing I've ever seen." That's a true story.
Yeah, you should get rid of Lawrence of Arabian background and get the advent calendar up. It'd be much more festive.
You know what? Tomorrow, when I will put a picture of Baby Yoda up behind me, and over Lawrence of Arabia's face. Lawrence of Arabia is a fascinating character. Let's be honest, but Baby Yoda, oh my God. Who doesn't love Baby Yoda? Let's talk about Baby Yoda. Why don't we do that? Let's do 30 minutes talking about Baby Yoda. Everyone's like, God, no. Let's talk about Google. Before we even do that, Kate, for those that have heard you a million times on this show but aren't completely aware, can you talk a little bit about what you do at 11FS, if you don't mind?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So I'm a lead customer strategist at 11FS in our customer strategy team. So what that basically means is I spend most of my time talking to customers, understanding the jobs to be done that they're struggling with, and working with our product leads, our designers, our engineers to build better services for them, fingers crossed. So yeah, that could be talking to customers in the retail space, the small business space, the corporate banking space. I've done lots of weird and wonderful projects over the last couple of years. So and in the US, the UK, and other exotic locations. So it's a fun job.
Yeah, one of those exotic locations was in Africa, and I'm trying to remember where. Was it Ghana?
It was Ghana. Yeah, that was definitely a fun trip. So yeah, I don't know if we were allowed to talk about it now, but it was a really good trip, and I didn't actually tell my parents that I was going because they would have been a little bit freaked out. So it was actually quite fun for them when they found out. But yeah, learned a lot about the small business banking space in West Africa, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'll brag about Kate and the team. So when we do our customer interviews, we're big believers in jobs to be done. We're going to be talking about Google here in a second. But the concept of jobs to be done, which really in Silicon Valley, same in London, is such a core concept now, of how you go about actually identifying real user problems, real user use cases. I think that's a nice way to put it. And we have a team led by Ryan Garner and Kate Moody at 11FS that, to me, are some of the best in the business. The first time I got exposed to jobs to be done was some work we were doing here in the Midwest in the US. And I remember thinking, great, another methodology that's the same as every other methodology. that's my honest assessment, Kate, of jobs to be done early on. I was like, yeah, whatever.
Did we convert you, or are you still?
Yes. Oh my God. Within the second day, I was like, this is so much better. This is a very good process. I was very impressed with it.
That would have been awkward if you'd gone the other way there. So I'm glad we managed to pull that back.
Well, this is an intervention. That's what we're going to do for the next 30 minutes, is talk about why in the hell do we use jobs to be done. It's a great process, everybody. If you go out, I think on YouTube, I actually have some videos of Ryan Garner explaining it, if I remember right. Producers, why don't you throw that in the comments down here? Hannah's like, thanks, Sam. You're going off script. If you could grab that video intro to jobs to be done and throw it in here, everybody, you'll see it in the comments. It is fantastic. All right. All that said, though, let's get into what we're supposed to be talking about, and that is Google made a lot of news in the past couple of weeks. We're talking about the updates to the Google app. I don't think they were very minor. I think that's a nice way of saying it. Were you surprised when this came out, Kate?
Yeah, it's a lot. So I don't know how we're going to quite cover all of it, but yeah, we can do our best. But yeah, they've launched a lot of stuff, and there's more to come, so it's exciting. Yeah,
to me, it is a kind of the equivalent of what is so popular in Asia, especially in China and in India, the concept of a super app, which does not exist in the US. I mean, Apple tries. They have their own ecosystem, but even Apple hasn't rolled out something like this. So this concept of one app to rule them all, very common. Like I said, in China, you see that all the time, and popular in India and in that market. I can't think of another market that has any. Europe really doesn't have anything equivalent that I can think of.
No, I don't think so. We've certainly not seen it yet. We know that some of the fintech players, the Revolut, the N26, sometimes they talk about having the aspirations of that's kind of where they want to get to longer term. They want to create that whole ecosystem where all the different components of your financial life can intersect and interrelate. But that's further down the road. We haven't got there quite yet. But as you say, yeah, the Asian market's really, really leading the way in this, and it's kind of up to the rest of the world to work out how they create their own version of that's relevant. And Google are obviously setting off down that path.
Yeah, and you can tell Google is actually monitoring this because they took my internet Wi-Fi and said, screw it. So now it's just my picture, which I look good, by the way, in that picture. I thank you, Tobias. I don't know.
I think it's an improvement, to be honest. So
we should, if they could make my lips move in that static photo, this would be so much better. I'd love to see it. And by the way, folks that have dialed in, thanks. Okay, some great ones. Sarah, great to have you here from HSBC. Simon, Sienna, there's a bunch of folks that have come on. Love seeing this. If you have questions, throw them in the comment section here. We will make sure we get to them. Oh, and Simon, look at that. A shout out to Ryan Garner. Ryan is fab. It's a very British statement. That means he's really good. Here in the US, they're like, I have no clue what that means. He is outstanding. And there's your link. Thank you, Hannah, for doing that. So again, questions as we go through this or comments, throw them in there, and Kate and I will try to get to it. So when we're talking about this, what Google's done and with their app, a massive redesign, I think, is one, for what they've done, but really open this up more or less to say, you now have a tool where you can offer, banks can offer checking and savings accounts, more or less using the Google app system. They call it the Plex, is a nice word for that. Makes me think of Spider-Man in the multiverse. They call it the Plexiverse, is what I've seen it called a million times. So one, Kate, let's talk about this. When we talk about this new offering from Google, how do you think it's going to benefit, one, their customers, but two, how's it going to benefit banking customers?
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So let's start anyway. So I suppose there's customer benefits that kick in straight away, based on those initial updates that we talked about to the Google Pay app. And then there's more that follow, when banking partnerships start to roll out in New Year. So for Google Pay's existing customers in the US, where this is kind of rolling out first, customers should already be able to access a series of new features within the app. So the app now appears to have 3 key components. So it's kind of a bit of a mix of expanding out previous functionality around payments and then adding new features that customers won't have been able to access in the Google environment before. So on the payment side of things, we've talked about quite a lot how they're moving much more into the Venmo space, facilitating that kind of person-to-person payment environment, group payments. And it's also building out options for merchant payments as well. So customers can now apparently pay for gas and parking directly in the app from thousands of locations, they claim. So obviously I know that Americans drive a lot, so I'm guessing gas parking, big deal in America. And there's new features in there that are a bit of a build on what they're already like to associate the app with in terms of the payment space. The stuff that's a bit newer, they've added in some interesting features and benefits around offers and rewards. So customers are going to be able to opt in to receive customized offers based on their spending activity across the cards that they've linked into the Google Pay app. And they've also added, I think I had a quick look at it, they've added an insights tab to the app, which on first inspection, depending on how much of a Google fan you are or how skeptical you are, I kind of really think it just looks like a Google skinned version of some of the personal financial management analysis tools that customers are likely to already be pretty familiar with from other brands. So it's new for Google, and I'm sure kind of once they get into their stride, they're going to do some pretty cool stuff with that, but not necessarily that new for customers. I suppose the macro benefit, where the real benefit for customers lies if they get it right, is going to be in that blend between overlaying the user experience and the browser search functionality that we all associate with Google, that we know is like their great strength, overlaying that with the banking services that customers need to kind of run their lives day to day. So adding that extra element of ease and human-centric thinking into how we interact with our money. And I'm kind of excited to see that. Some of the demos around how you can search through your transactions using natural language, for example, look much more useful than what I've seen or sort of personally experienced elsewhere. And that seems to be powered by connecting Google Pay into your Gmail, into your Google Photos to let it automatically search for receipts. So they're really leveraging the kind of entire suite of Google functionality there. So for people who are willing to make the connections and link everything up, there's some really potentially big benefits that they can experience. In terms of the banking partners, obviously that's kind of coming in a little bit later in the new year when the Google Plex accounts get launched. But again, it feels like a really smart move for lots of the initial partners that they've announced to help them get into that Google audience, to kind of have that wider reach and to accelerate their digital propositions way faster than they can probably do if they were trying to run things themselves. So it's really exciting for both customers, as we would talk about them, but also kind of the banking industry as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, the rollout, they took the app, basically we're talking about a massive redesign of the app that they had. So basically introducing a pay tab, an insights tab, and an explore tab. And, we keep using this word of more Venmo feel to it. I'm assuming this audience knows this, but, when you look at the head, I think it's head of payments or head of, now there's a different word for it. I'll have to look up what his job title is, but essentially Bill Reddy, who was one of the co-founders of Braintree, hence Venmo, is at Google, everybody. Shocking. Go figure, right? He was the COO at PayPal because PayPal had acquired Venmo. So I know part of the press release when Bill went over there was obviously he wouldn't do anything in direct competition, but I'm sure he has influenced, if you will, what Google's doing when it comes around payments and P2P. I agree with you, Kate. I think the one that still feels a little, of those 3 tabs, the one that kind of feels meh is the Insights tab. PFM has never been a big deal in the US. Sorry, everybody. It is. And we did a great report, by the way. Kate, weren't you part of that? The PFM report we did, and what PFM means really for European and UK clients. And when it came to the US, people are like, yeah, whatever.
We looked at it in quite a lot of detail in the UK, where, as you say, it's been a much bigger topic and something that you see a lot of the leading banks are leading out with in their advertising and their kind of comms to customers. So much more differentiating in the UK. But yeah, as you say, different setup in the States. I suppose people just understand financial management to mean different things in the States. So you can't just lift and shift the same tools from market to market in quite the same way.
Yeah, I mean, PFM, obviously stands for Personal Financial Management. In the U.S., it stands for, pure F and meh. I think people have been crazy about it. Here's what I will say, though. When you got a company like Google, where we're talking about data now, and their ability to look at data across your life. So we're literally talking everything, right? Let's be honest. What's the worst thing that could ever happen to somebody? In my opinion, their search history goes public. You're screwed. That's one thing you don't want to have happen. But Google, when you think about it, the volume of data they have access to makes it interesting. So I think that the Insights tab can go somewhere. I'll be curious to see how well they do it. The one that, for me, makes this interesting, especially for a play in the U.S., is the Explore tab, because now you're talking deals and rewards. And if there's one thing we do love in the U.S., it's deals and rewards. We will use the living crap out of our credit cards to get, cash back, to get rewards, to get points. That's an incredibly popular play in the U.S. And you see that with the different neobanks and challenger banks that are out here. So, for example, SoFi, Kate, with what they're doing with their rewards program, where you can take those rewards to help pay down your student debt.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I like that a lot when I saw that. I think that you can tell that the guys and girls at Google Pay understand that multi-card environment for US customers as well, because they're certainly talking about, again, we'll have to see how it plays out in the actual user experience, but they're certainly talking about those offers and benefits being able to be accrued and used across multiple cards that are all kind of linked into that same Google Pay kind of wallet hub. So they're not trying to make that ask of a customer of switch to a single account or switch to a single card. They're recognizing that customers in the US in particular have multiple accounts and multiple cards, and they're trying to create like a single space for bringing that together.
Yeah, Simon Schofield asked a great question, goes, what's the viewpoint on Google's motivation? I think capturing a complete transaction history of a customer gives them a massive advantage in this space. So what do you think motivated Google to make this leap there, Kate, from your standpoint?
I think it's really interesting to see the language that they've used in kind of the rollout of this. They've talked quite openly. They've obviously realized that everyone's first instinct, mine included, is it's about data. It's a data play. Yeah. So they've come out very clearly and said that the financial data is not going to be used internally for marketing purposes. They've said, it's not going to be moved. It's not going to be transferred. The offers and benefits part of the app, which is based on analyzing the spend, is an opt-in. So I think, again, they've kind of realized that they have to tread carefully there. So it's not initially, I think there's lots of other ways that they can monetize this. And I think they see it as like a long-term investment, but certainly in the short term, they're trying to make a lot of noise about it not being about data explicitly, about their motivations lying elsewhere. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I agree. We have been, when I say we, folks that do a lot of writing and talking about fintech and banking have now been saying for a good decade that Google, Amazon, Apple do not want to be banks. They have no desire to be a bank. I still believe that. I'll still say that, right? This isn't a play to become a bank. I like what Ron Shevlin said. Ron Shevlin from Cornerstone Advisors, and he wrote a piece on this in Forbes. This is Google's play to be a bank vendor. If anyone should be nervous, in my opinion, it should be the FISs, the Fiservs, those providers, because now Google is stepping into that play. When you look at what they offered via services, when it comes to analytics, Google Cloud, an ecosystem like this, if I am one of the big service providers, now I'm a little nervous.
Yeah.
I think you really should be too, by the way.
Yeah, I think I read that same article from Ron. It was really interesting. The other point I think he made that was sort of connected to that was that it would help explain why they've gone with so many partners out of the gates of this. I think 11 different banks or kind of US financial institutions. So again, they're really showing by using it as a way to demonstrate that they can work with multiple different financial services institutions. So I think that's obviously going to be helpful in that kind of longer term aspiration to become one of the main financial services vendors out there in the US space.
Yeah. I know this is hard to tell from my incredible picture that is posted up there. But I'm Gen X, everybody. I'm a touch older than Kate. So, Kate, do you think this will be especially appealing for a younger generation? And I will not use the M word.
Thank God for that. I mean, it sounds like I'm always apprehensive of tagging anything as like it's for young people or it's for old people. I mean, it's just such a basic way.
That's just a stupid, in my opinion. That's a
Yeah.
stupid analysis, or that's a stupid comment to say, yes, this will be greatly appealing to just this one generation. Give me a break.
I mean, what it does sound like is they are primarily focused, understandably, on anyone who is looking to manage or interact with their finances primarily through their phone.
Yes.
So obviously, that's obviously going to be the case for a younger generation. Like that's kind of their starting point. They're coming through at a time when checks and queuing in a bank branch just feels clunky and inefficient. So, reading between the lines, actually it sounds like they're moving some of the previous like web-based Google Pay functionality, taking that away and encouraging all of their users to move towards the app. So you definitely have to be somebody that is willing to transact on a mobile phone by the sounds of it, based on what they're doing, which is a slightly different direction of travel to what we're seeing in some of the other fintechs. I think Revolut just announced today that they're actually going to add web-based functionality in. So some of the apps in the UK, for example, are actually moving the other direction, but they're really, Google are really doubling down on this is going to be an experience that makes sense on your phone, on your device, when you have access to all of these other apps and parts of the Google system that will make it work and add extra value for you. So in that sense, obviously that will lean more towards a younger audience. But if you're open to that, if you've got all of that functionality and all of those apps and systems set up, it doesn't matter how old you are, you'll still be able to get benefit from this.
Yeah, good point by Sina Quist, and hopefully, Sina, I said your name right. She said Google's motivation to collect receipts from Google Drive and attach them to the transactions may mean they want more behavioral spending data for their customers. Part of this is, and again, you have to opt into it, but allowing the app access to your photos for receipts is built into this. So yeah, Sina, I agree with you, right? If you can get SKU level data, hello, right? That's the holy grail, as we all know. So, that to me, that is a massive play for this. Brian McCarty, Holly Brian at Jack Henry up in Minnesota or Iowa. Brian, I can never remember. I think you live like right across the border from Minnesota. I never remember this. But he said, is this a smart move for community FIs to get in on this deal with Google? I have an opinion on this. What do you think, Kate?
I'm interested to see. So they've talked about when you come in, when they've rolled out these partners and they've got all of the accounts, that they're going to give customers the choice of who they want to open an account with. So I think on paper you look at it and you think, oh, it's great. All of these community banks are going to have the option to accelerate, to do things with a much wider reach. But I suppose, again, my inner skeptic or the worry that I have is that if a customer is faced with a list of like 10 banks on a screen that they could open an account with, who are they going to pick? How are you going to justify? I mean, we know from all of the work that we do that community banks can offer huge value to customers. They're able to offer fantastic service. They're able to offer all sorts of other great provisions to their customers. But can you communicate that in a really smooth, simplified, basic kind of onboarding process through the Google Pay app? I don't know. So part of me is hoping it works out really well, and part of me worries that people will just default to picking Citi at the top of the list because they recognize the name.
Yeah. So Brian, here's my opinion on this. I still believe that community banks have a distinct advantage over someone like Citi, in that when we're talking about hyper personalization, when you're talking about really knowing your customer, community FIs should, right? I mean, you're within the community. That's the whole concept, right? The relationships you have with them. They should be able to take advantages of that. And that's kind of the concept with what Google rolled out, right? You get the basic tools, but you're still supposedly able to differentiate yourself within the app by the different services that you're offering through it. So I think that's going to be the hook, or that's going to be the trick. I don't think that's easy. But that's where you can see Google wanting to take this, is in the hyper personalization side, right? Having to see, to Sina's point, right? Having access to the receipts and the transaction level data. and be able to do something actionable against that, which is good for the consumer, right? Let's get back to what this really needs to be, is what does it do for the consumer? I do think that's a big play. I do want to get another question. This is from Jasmine, and hopefully, Jasmine, I said your name right. With Apple being the biggest user base in the US versus Android, how would they make this easy and appeal for those Apple users? Good question.
I don't know if they're going to try, to be honest. I mean, I can't see Apple letting Google Pay app onto the App Store. Can you?
That'll be fun, won't it? I think that's going to be fun. It's going to be a battle of the Titans to see where that goes. I do think having Citi as pretty much your bank right out the gate doing this. I think Citi called it the Plex account. Makes this interesting, right? They went big and they went national when they did this. So I do think that is part of it. Yeah, Apple's incredibly protective of their ecosystem. We all know that. Even in the relationships they have with banks, because Apple does have the integration partnership with Goldman Sachs on this, but Apple's notorious. Is that the word I want to use, Kate? Notorious? Famous for? I'm gonna go with notorious. They can be they're the big boy, they're the big beast in the room when you're working with them. And anybody that's ever done an Apple Pay rollout for any bank, as I've done, God, I don't know how many, it's pretty damn hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't want to overly simplify it, but I think it plays into that long-standing narrative about the differences between Apple and Google, right? Apple focus on deep, monogamous relationships, partners, like everything's done in their space, in their way. Google have been about flexibility, customer choice, more open infrastructure. So yeah, obviously there's a limit to that when it comes to financial services. You can't have totally open infrastructure, but it sounds like they're much more focused on selling this message that if you're open to working the way that Google wants us to work as a supporting bank or a supporting financial institution, then you're going to be welcome to reach out to them and get involved. Whereas I don't get that sense from Apple.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting. In all honesty, I do think I'm not surprised that Citi was, basically one of the first ones out the gate. If you look at the list of the other folks that are coming into this, it gets kind of interesting, right? You've got BMO, so Bank of Montreal. It was BBVA US, but I guess that's now PNC, depending on how this goes. That will be interesting to see how that goes. Green Dot, which is pretty cool, and Bank Mobile are all going to be, pushing this out the door. So I think that's what those gets interesting. We look at the partnering banks, who's going to be part of this ecosystem. I think it will be somewhat of a slow burn. That's my prediction. And I think Google's okay with it being a slow burn. I think they can afford for this to learn and keep pivoting as they go through and do this. So, we'll see. That's the part that I think will be interesting. You've got another good question. This was from Patrick Schubert. Why do we need a company to collect our money and have so much fear to use digital currency on the other side? What's your opinion on that? Ooh, digital currencies. Kate, I have an opinion. You wanna go there?
I'm actually working on a project around digital currencies right now at the moment. So I feel my hands
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's called a softball question, everybody. I lobbed that one to her. Yeah, I find that part fascinating. I really do. Here's what I will say. I'll do this. I'll touch on it and then I'll get off of it. So here's my take. I've said this multiple times on the breakfast brief that I do on multiple shows. I am not a crypto expert whatsoever when it comes to cryptocurrency. We have Simon Taylor for that. We have folks like Kate and others that are good on it. I will say that I looked at Bitcoin. I remember, I think it was 2011, where I had a bunch of friends and I said, let's just buy $100 worth and see what happens. I didn't. Hence, this background behind me is not like, Jamaica or, the Caribbean or anything like that. I do buy, Bitcoin fractions now. So there you go. So I'm a believer. I do believe, for example, Bitcoin itself as an asset will go north of 25, 30 grand this year in value. How's that for prediction? But again, what the hell do I know? It'll probably crash down to $3,000. just because I
think-
said it on the show.
Yeah, I think there's also, there's nothing to rule out Google going down that path in the future. They've not built it in right now, but we've seen lots of the fintechs, Square, Revolut, kind of build crypto much more closely into their customer propositions. So, and it's not gone too badly for those folks. So it doesn't feel like the lowest hanging fruit for Google right now, but I'm sure it's something that they're looking at. And as the customer demand shifts and changes, they'll have the ability to add that into their infrastructure, I'm sure, if they want to.
Patrick, what I would tell you to do, watch the hires, just flat out. Watch the hires at Google. Pay attention to who they're hiring and who they're bringing on, and then look out about 6 months from there. Honest to God, that's the easiest way to see kind of where they're moving to. And what I mean by that, think about some of the hires Google's done recently. So we talked about Bill Reddy already. I didn't mean that as a pun. But you're buying the guy that was behind Braintree and Venmo, and then over at PayPal, bringing him on. You've got folks like Yolanda Piazza from Citi, who ran Citi FinTech, the CEO there. Derek White, who was at Barclays, BBVA, U.S. Bank, right? So you look at the talent within the industry they're bringing there, and I'll say the same about crypto. I would watch hires to kind of see where they're moving toward, and that's a great way to kind of sense this. My advice to everybody, I would watch how this plays out with both some of the smaller players that have dove in first, some of these smaller credit unions and banks that are going down this path to see how well it works. And Brian McCarty, getting back to your question, if you're a smaller community bank, watch the lessons learned from the integration there. And for the larger banks, watch Citi big time and see how well this plays out for them, and how they're able to differentiate themselves. I was reading a press release about this from Citi, where they talked about their advantage from their ATM network. All honestly, Kate, I don't know the last time I went to an ATM. I can't tell you the last time I used an ATM, flat out.
Yeah. Well, we know, but we also know that cash usage is massively skewed by a range of demographics, right? So there will be parts of the US customer base where cash, despite the pandemic, is still super relevant. So, but again, I suppose it's stuff like that makes me think. When you, as a potential user of this app, come January or February, or whenever the list is live of the banks that you can plug into this, are you going to pick a niche community bank that maybe you've not heard of, or are you going to pick someone where that if you happen to need cash, you can access Citi's ATM network? So I want the community banks to do well, and I want it to be a success for them. But as you say, like, lots of the things that they offer are maybe harder to simplify into this kind of digital environment as an onboarding experience. So I'm really hoping that they manage to do something special there to bring that to life.
Yeah, I do too. Speaking as a U.S. citizen, so again, Kate is in London. I'm down here in Florida. And for the folks that are in the U.S., this. How many banking relationships do you have? I mean, I swear to God, I bank at USAA. I have banking relationships at Citi, for example, Chase. I have banking relationship with ViStar Credit Union right down the street, right? Because of the great deals I got from an auto loan that I go through the local credit union. So I think the reality, especially in the U.S., is you're going to have multiple banking relationships, and you might have, in that case, this gets interesting for a play like Google, for something like this. And is that rather common in the UK too, Kate? I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I lived there.
I think it's becoming more common. You see more examples.
One primary account and a bunch around it, right?
Yeah, I think that's the more typical model that you'll have. Your main account where your salary is paid into, and then you might split out chunks of your salary into a savings account somewhere. You might move some of your sort of everyday spending money into a Monzo or a Starling, something that's a little bit more intuitive and easy to interact with. That's obviously not everyone, but it's increasingly common. And we don't have the same level of credit card usage as you see in the US, so that has a major impact as well.
Yeah, that's true. Well, here's what I encourage everybody to do. I'd go out and read the article by Ron Shevlin on this out in Forbes. I think he's done 2 now, if I remember right. They're both really good articles. They go in depth, and they approach this both from Google's standpoint and from financial institutions, both like at a community level, credit unions, and the mid-tier banks. Financial Brand did a really good write-up on this. Jim Maroos and the team over there did a great write-up that's worth looking to. What I would tell folks like Patrick and some of the Sienna and the other folks that have commented on this, I have definitely set up a news feed specifically on this story. to continue to get commentary on it as it rolls out. I think it's going to be a slow burn. I really do. I think it'd be interesting to see where this goes. And I guarantee you, I don't know, maybe in the next 6 months, Kate and team will have a write-up on this coming out from 11FS. That will be the damn best that you've seen. I'll guarantee you that.
Wow, you've put the pressure on there, geez.
Yeah, come on, Kate. You know you will. I know you will. You know you will. It'll be freaking awesome. You know, Benjamin and everyone else on the team will contribute to that. I'm really looking forward to reading that one. And believe it or not, we're out of time. We run out of time. You want to talk about Baby Yoda at all, Kate, before we go, or are we good?
I think people have suffered enough. So
no, they haven't. They gave Baby Yoda a name, everybody. I'm so happy. All right. My producer's like, oh my God, what is wrong with him? Everybody, that's it. Kate, thanks for joining me. Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing at 11FS?
I'm on LinkedIn, Kate Moody on LinkedIn, or on Twitter at K8Moody.
And folks, I'm gonna say this. Here's the thing about 11FS. We talk about hiring 11s, and what we mean by that are people that just go above and beyond. And I'll embarrass Kate and the producers on the show. They are that good. You should be following them. You should be following them on Twitter. You should be following them on LinkedIn. And you should be reading what they produce, because it is outstanding. It really is. It's just my job to rattle on. These people know what they're doing. All right. As for me, Sam Mall on Twitter, sam@11fs.com. And don't miss our other live show. It's called Spotlight. It goes live on Thursday at 3:30 p.m. GMT. That's 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you next time.